Hey guys, this is Mr. View, and today we're going to be talking about Japan. Yesterday we talked, or you learned a little bit more about Mussolini with a video. The day before, you learned all about how he was controlling Italy and how he came to power and his fascist party, right? And the way the totalitarians really gain control and they keep control of their people with propaganda and censorship and terror and rigging elections and things like that. And eventually, we learned about how the youth were involved with Mussolini's plan to control Italy by kind of brainwashing them by Mussolini is always right above their schoolrooms or classrooms, whatever you want to say. They kind of became brainwashed. He also had these youth camps. We're also going to find out about that with Hitler. But today we're going to turn our attention to one of the other bad side powers in World War II, Japan. Italy, Japan, and Germany made up the Axis, the bad guys, if you will, the guys on the other side of America. So we're going to call them the bad guys. But Japan was the second part of that. Japan had a king at this time. His name was Hirohito, but he was more of a figurehead. They saw him as a godlike figure, and you couldn't really speak directly to him, and he would not speak directly to others. So he was seen more like a god than an actual king. But he didn't run the country. They had a democracy also, and their democracy, their parliament was called the Diet, right? And they were supposed to be running things. And at one time, Japan's economy was booming, kind of like today, right? Japan has a great economy today. It was booming right after World War One. Everything was going along great until 1923, and there's a big earthquake in Tokyo, like one of the biggest ever. It was 8.3 on the Richter scale, 300 aftershocks. Listen to this, it destroyed 700,000 buildings, like houses, businesses, etc. They weren't made very well out of wood and stuff, and 140,000 people died. Think about that. 140,000 people died from this earthquake. Now, you look at some of our disasters here. All right, you talk about 9/11, right? A couple thousand people versus 140,000 people died because of this earthquake. It's crazy. 45% of workers in Tokyo lost their jobs. And that has an effect on Japan for sure, but not as big as the next thing. In 1929, there was a worldwide depression, right? The Great Depression smacks America right in the mouth. It smacked Japan in the mouth too. And everybody was poor, right? Just like in America, where everybody was really struggling. And the government and the military disagreed with how to get things back on track. The government wanted to try a bunch of different things. The military, they said, hey, let's expand. I see China over there and Manchuria. Let's go get their stuff. It'll make Japan better and stronger. And so they disagreed with how to make the country better. The nationalists, those guys with extreme pride in your country, just like in Italy, and the militarists, they were imperialists. Remember, that's taking over another country, controlling another country. But the militarists couldn't just do it, right? So they had to come up with a plan. And so they come up with a plan. In 1931, they blow up their own railroad and they blame it on Manchuria and China. They say they did it. In reality, it wasn't them. It was Japan themselves that blew up their own railroad. So they blow up their own railroad. They blame China, throw a bunch of propaganda at it, say, we got to punish them. We got to take our revenge. And so they go and attack China. And in 1931, that's what they do. The League of Nations, remember that group that formed with the Treaty of Versailles, all those nations joined it. They all condemned Japan. They said, hey, you can't do that. That's bad. But Japan didn't care. They said, screw you, we're out. We quit the League of Nations. And nobody in the League of Nations wanted to go back to a world war, so they didn't fight. They just left Japan alone. And Japan just kept punching China in the mouth. They used propaganda, censorship, and terror, much the same that Mussolini did in Italy and Hitler does in Germany, you know, coming up, which we'll learn about tomorrow. Okay. So, a very brief lecture today of only a few questions, and that's it. It's pretty much a very, very easy day for you. You're welcome. Talk to you soon.